Welcome. Today podcast we're talking about foreign policy and the war between Russia and Ukraine. Foreign policy is how countries decide to interact with each other, and those decisions affect everyday people. Involves how countries deal with global issues, build relationships with other nations, and sometimes even deal with problems at home. The war between Russia started in 2014 when Russia troops secretly entered Crimea, a part of Ukraine. The, the conflict then spread to the Donbas region, where fighting has been going on for years. Over 14,000 people died, and many families have to leave their homes. As we talk about this topic, let's remember that beginning every political decision, real people are affected. Families, children, and entire communities whose lives are changing forever.
So let's talk about Kamala Harris. She was born on October 20 of 1964 in Oklahoma, California. As the actual Vice President of the United States, she took his position on January 20 of 2021 alongside President Joe Biden. She earned a bachelor's degree from Howard University and a Juris Doctor from the University of California, Hassan College of Law. She was the California Attorney General from 2011 to 2017. As a U.S. Senator in 2016, she represents California. Hey Sakia, what can you tell me about Trump?
Yes, sure. Trump was born on June 14, 1946. He was the 45 presenter of United States from to 2017 to 2021. His presented involving biggest doubt over immigration and trends. Trump was impeached twice, but not removed from the office. He remains influential in politics and running for presidency in 2024. Now, Matthias, can you please tell me about what Harris has done so far for the Ukraine war?
Oh, sure, let me tell you. In diplomatic engagements, Harris has worked with world leaders to foster a unifying response to Russian aggression. In military aid, the Biden administration has provided significant military assistance to Ukraine, including advantage weaponry and training. This support has been crucial to Ukraine's war effort. She stressed the importance of humanitarian aid to Ukraine civilians affected by the war and support efforts to help refugees. She has worked to strengthen alliances with Europeans and other partners to ensure coordinated support for Ukraine and address the broader implications of the conflict, such as energy security. A quote that Harris said is that Putin could end Ukraine war tomorrow.
Now, let me tell you guys about what Trump will do for the war. Former President Trump, he said he will focus on the peace negotiation between Ukraine and Russia, not to continue with the current strategy. He emphasized that he will not wait for the second term to make his move, but rather he will try to reach a deal just after the election was over. He thinks the war is something that can be settled down fast, especially with Russia being a unclear power, and will do the needful to stop the fight through the talk.
Is would you give Ukraine weapons and funding if you were
I
elected?
would sit down. Let me just put it a nicer way. Uh, if I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in one
First, I'll meet with Putin. I'll meet with Zelensky. They both have weaknesses and they both have strengths. And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be
day?
absolutely
Do you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country.
So in today's podcast, we have a very special guest, our dear principal, Mr. Kevin. The first question we have for you is, what do you think about how Trump will handle this situation between Ukraine and Russia?
I have very strong feelings about Ukraine and the invasion from Russia on Ukraine, because I had lived in Ukraine for 2 years, 2.5 years actually, teaching in the village and working with it through a program called Peace Corps in America. Well, it's an American program, but we go over to help countries. And I went there because I wanted to see an emerging democracy, because Ukraine was just starting out back then as a democracy, and I thought it was really interesting to be able to see a country wanting to be free and having this ability to be free, right, and make their country. Like, I wasn't in America in 1787, even though I look old. I'm not that old, right? So when they were making the Constitution and they were doing that here in America, I wasn't able to do it. I've only got to learn about it. So it was really exciting for me to go to a country to see democracy at its when it's a baby, right? When it's just starting out. So that's why I went there. So that's a long explanation, but to tell you why I believe that Ukraine needs to have its own independence from Russia, and also I think as the United States, one of our goals as a country is to spread democracy and let countries have democracy, right? And so as the older country with democracy and a world leader, I think it's really important for us to help Ukraine with this war, right? Not necessarily get involved with it, but giving them aid and support so they can fight against Russia's invasion, and which would be stopping the democracy. So, what are my feelings about Donald Trump's situation on the war? He says he'll finish the war immediately and he'll be done with it before he even gets into office. I don't think that happens unless he's saying Ukraine doesn't get aid from the United States and Ukraine needs to either say they quit the war, and that means they're giving up their land and their own sovereignty and letting Russia have control over them. So I'm against that. I want Ukraine to be independent.
So continue about like this topic. Do you think Kamala Harris and Joe Biden administration has done enough for helping Ukraine?
I think they have in a lot of ways. I think, they've helped gather the world support. I think the European Union and Europe also has to support Ukraine in this way, because Ukraine is stopping Russia from getting larger and more powerful and moving towards Europe more. That being said, it's really tricky, right? If the United States goes too much involved with this, it could turn into a world war, right? And both Russia has nuclear weapons and the United States has nuclear weapons, and I think that could really, so it's a very tricky line, so to like support enough, but not so much that that Russia feels like the United States is attacking it, because then that would be a bigger war.
So, what do you think are the most insignificant impact of the Ukraine war on global politics today?
You guys have good questions. There's a lot of impact on the politics of the world today from this war, I think, and the economy too. I don't know if you have that in there too, but like the economy too, with the global impact is like oil prices are gone up, right? And we see, I think we see the world starting to shape where Russia, Iran, North Korea are starting to align as one group, and then we're seeing the other countries starting to align as another group, right? And by seeing that, and I think having that starting to happen is scary, right? Like if we look at history, that happens in World War I. Alliances start to be built. In World War II, that happens. Alliances start to be built. So now we're seeing this again. And I'm not saying we're going to world war, but it gets scary when we start seeing countries start to be like, this is who we are. And also, what does it say for democracy, right? Like, how are we supporting democracy if that happens? There's other places, Hong Kong, like there's places that China could take over because of that, right? So So I think the United States needs to make a statement, and the world needs to make a statement saying this is not right. If people should have their own sovereignty. People should be able to vote for who they want and let their country go with that. And the Ukrainian war is not doing that. Putin is saying we're going to do this now.